The second of 3 Grand Prix tournaments took place in Belgrade, Serbia, where 16 players were divided into 4 pools of 4 players. Each pool is a double round-robin tournament. After winning his group, Rapport entered the knockout tournament, consisting of semi-finals and a final. Both the semi-finals and final consisted of 2 regular time limit games, plus tie-breaks if required. In the semi-final, Richard Rapport, who in 2010 at the age of just 13 years and 11 months became the youngest Hungarian GM ever and also the youngest GM in the world, and today at the age of 25 is gradually catching up with the absolute top of the world as he has been among the top 10 since October 2021, faced Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, currently the world's number 11, but who since 2016 has spent a lot of time among the top 5 chess players in the world. His rating peaked at 2,819 in August 2016, making him the 7th highest rated player in history. Rapport opened with the queen's pawn, and with knight to f6 and the moves that followed, the game moved into one of Vachier-Lagrave's signature defenses, the Grunfeld. In general, black uses it to try to achieve unbalanced positions, focusing on piece play and initiative. On move 18 the queens were off the board, and since Rapport hadn't yet castled, Vachier-Lagrave attacked the center to put the white king in trouble. But although this looked very dangerous, according to the engine, Rapport followed the correct plan and found the right counterattack, eventually reaching the d7 square with his pawn and an advantage of plus 6.8. In addition, Rapport also managed to move forward with the e-pawn and finally his d-pawn could not be prevented from promoting. Therefore, Vachier-Lagrave resigned on move 37. A masterpiece by Rapport. In the rematch, Vachier-Lagrave opened with e4 and with bishop b5 on move 5 the Ruy Lopez opening was on the board. And although a draw was enough for Rapport to move into the final, he didn't play knight to f6, the Berlin defense, which has one of the highest draw rates of any opening. Instead, he opted for a more combative variation with the move to a6, the Morphy defense. Both players played very offensively, and so on the one hand Vachier-Lagrave managed to win the black bishop at the expense of an open rook file. On the other hand, a few moves later Rapport was able to trap the white knight, and after Vachier-Lagrave sacrificed it on f7, the material was equalized again. In the endgame, Vachier-Lagrave already looked like the winner, having built up a clear winning advantage. Rapport fought back by sacrificing his rook to gain a passed pawn. Vachier-Lagrave didn't accept the sacrifice, giving away his entire advantage. Instead, he captured the pawn on g7 to win a passed pawn as well. Eventually both players managed to promote their pawns, but on move 66 they agreed on a draw with an engine evaluation of 0.0, as the white king could not escape the perpetual check of the black queen. After this very exciting and intense game, Richard Rapport was the first player who entered the final. The final of the second tournament of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022 was Richard Rapport versus Dmitry Andreikin. For both players, a victory would certainly be one of the biggest events of their careers and an important step towards qualifying for the candidates tournament. In standard chess they faced each other only once, and that game in the year 2017 ended in a draw. Andreikin started with e4 and after a few moves the 4 knights game was on the board, which usually leads to quiet positional play. The next pawn move to d4 created the Scotch variation, which leads to a more open position. Although Rapport managed to win a pawn in a rook and pawn endgame, the engine bar showed a 0.0 evaluation almost all the time in this completely uneventful game. And finally, the game ended in a draw on move 37 after a 3-fold repetition. The black rook could not capture the pawn on f2, since there was a back rank mate thread. With a 99.5% accuracy from both players according to chess.com game review, at least the statistic was nice to look at. After this quiet afternoon of chess, we looked forward to an exciting rematch. Rapport, now with white, opened with d4 and with d5 and c4 the queen's gambit was on the board, which black declined, by not capturing the pawn, but moving to e6. After knight on c3 Andreikin opted for a6, the Janowski variation, a very rare and not very deeply analyzed variation that is generally considered a solid line. But recent games have shown that things can also get spicy pretty fast. And since the move a6 is a useful waiting move, aimed at forcing white to show his hand and this information should then be used against him, Rapport also played a waiting move with pawn to a3. And after Andreikin responded with pawn on h6, by the way, a novelty, it was already a completely new game at move 5, confirming that the Janowski variation is not so well known. On move 25 Andreikin was able to place his knight very dangerously on e4 and therefore Rapport attacked it immediately. Andreikin ignored this and started to attack the white queen with his rook. And for lack of better moves for both players, it seemed that the game again would result in a three-fold repetition. But Rapport didn't accept the draw by moving his queen back to e3, and after much thought and with only 2 minutes left on the clock, decided to move the queen to e5. And thus the game went on. Andreikin immediately attacked the white rook with his knight, but Rapport stayed true to his courageous play and sacrificed his rook in favor of a threatening offensive. And it paid off. After capturing the g7 pawn with his queen, Rapport was ahead plus 2.3, as the black king had little safety. Andreikin realized his precarious situation and now also under enormous time pressure, he decided to sacrifice his rook to possibly find a perpetual check with his queen and save this game into a draw after all. But there was no perpetual. And since on the next move Rapport could move his king to a2 and block the next check with his queen, Andreikin gave his queen and resigned. Congratulations to Rapport for this huge win, and a great chance of qualifying for the candidates tournament. If you liked the video, please hit the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest chess news and tournament highlight videos. Thanks for watching.